Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It is truly an honor to be part of a company working to advance the future of cancer treatment through breakthrough radiotherapy technology. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce TibaRay and our speaker, Dr. Bill Lu. TibaRay was founded with a clear and ambitious mission to transform cancer treatment to next generation radiotherapy and ultimately help cure cancer in a flash. The company brings together deep expertise at the intersection of medicine and advanced accelerator physics. Two of our co-founder, Dr. Bill Lu and Dr. Sami Tantawi, who's a world-renowned physicist with over 35 years at Stanford and SLAC. Together, they combine clinical insight with breakthrough engineering to create the foundation for TibaRay technology. It is truly my privilege to introduce Dr. Bill Lu. Bill is a physician scientist at Stanford and one of the leading experts in radiation oncology globally. He serves as Director of Thoracic Radiation Oncology, Co-Director of Particle Therapy, and Director of New Technology of Radiation Oncology at the Stanford Cancer Institute. His clinical work focused on treating lung and thoracic cancers using the most advanced radiation techniques available today. Bill received his MD from University of California, Davis, and his PhD in bioengineering from University of California, San Francisco, and Berkeley. He is certified by the American Board of Radiology and Radiation Oncology and is a fellow of the American Society for Radiation Oncology and also a fellow of the American College of Radiology. What makes Bill especially unique and central to TibaRay mission is that he is not only a practicing clinician, but also a pioneering researcher in the next generation of cancer treatment. His lab is recognized worldwide as a leader in the biology and clinical potential of flash radiotherapy, an approach that delivers ultra-rapid radiotherapy with the potential to dramatically reduce damage to healthy tissue. Bill is also the originator of the phaser concept at TibaRay, a breakthrough approach to delivering highly conformal, ultra-fast radiotherapy using coordinate multi-beam system. This concept is at the core of TibaRay vision to make flash therapy both practical and scalable. In addition, Bill served on the national expert panel, including the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, helping define clinical standard of care in oncology. His work bridged the gap between cutting-edge science and real-world patient treatment, exactly what is needed to bring innovation like FLASH into clinical reality. With that, Bill, I'd like to turn it over to you. Bill?
All right. Thank you so much, Ting. Let me share this presentation. Let me know if there's any issues seeing it, but I'm really excited to talk about the work that is happening at TibaRay that was born out of a research collaboration at Stanford University to bring a new paradigm to cancer treatment. So we'll be talking about curing cancer in a flash and explaining what flash is and why it's important and how we're bringing it to reality for patients. So just to address the problem that we're dealing with and why we're doing this, cancer is now the #1 single cause of global deaths around the world. Depending on exactly how it's counted and what regions, it might be #1, it might be #2. But the bottom line is that it is a major health crisis in the United States. 2 in 5 people will get cancer at some point in their lifetime, which means that all of us here likely know somebody who's been affected by it or have been affected by it ourselves. And 1 in 5 people in the United States will die of cancer. To give a sense of the scale of this problem numerically and how large a global health epidemic it is, these are some figures showing the trends over time, both in the past and projected into the future from the World Health Organization, the number of cancer cases and the number of cancer deaths around the world. And by way of comparison, if we look at March of 2021, which was after year one of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were nearly 3 million deaths around the world from COVID. So that was a major shock to the world. By the end of year two of the pandemic, that number had nearly doubled to over 6 million total over those 2 years. Thankfully, that has declined substantially since then. But by comparison, every single year, more than 10 million people are dying from cancer around the world. So that's the scale of the problem that we're dealing with. And we expect from the demographic trends that that will nearly double over the next couple of decades. And many of those are happening in the developing world in addition to the developed world. So how are patients cured of cancer? And you'll hear me use the word cure a lot throughout this presentation because I think it is a very important goal of what we're trying to do. And it turns out that of patients historically who have been cured of cancer, about 49% of them were cured with surgery as a major part of their treatment, about 40% with radiotherapy. And really, it's only a small minority that have been cured primarily with chemotherapy or drug therapies. Of course, a lot of advances have happened. There have been major advances in new drugs, immunotherapy, molecular targeted therapies. But still, even with all of those advances, it's still quite a small proportion who are primarily cured with those new treatments, even though they have a big benefit. On the other hand, patients being cured with radiotherapy radiotherapy is accounting for more and more of the cures with advances. And therefore, breakthroughs in radiotherapy really can revolutionize cancer therapy overall. At the same time, there's a major crisis in terms of global access to radiotherapy. Only about half of patients worldwide who could benefit from radiotherapy have any access at all. You see here the countries in the red and the orange are places where there's little to no access to radiotherapy, which means that even today, millions of patients who should be able to receive curative therapy can only get palliative treatment. So this is a global health crisis here and now that needs to be addressed. My specialty is in lung cancer, and I'll be describing some concepts from lung cancer that do, in fact, apply to many cancers or most cancers overall. Historically, we conceive of cancer in terms of the stage of the cancer, and that's what drives the treatment. We think of categories like localized cancer, where the tumor is confined to the organ where it started from. And these tumors might be treated with surgery or radiotherapy, local treatment modalities. Cancers will spread to lymph nodes in the region, and those types of cases often need to be treated with combined modality treatments like combination of chemo and radiotherapy. Whereas more advanced cancers that have spread to distant sites from where they started, metastatic cancer, the primary treatment in most of these cases is going to be systemic or drug-based therapies. But as you can imagine, the earlier stage tumors are frequently curable, whereas the more advanced ones we think of as being sometimes curable. And with metastatic cancer, historically, we've thought of these as being incurable. But a lot is changing, and I'm showing just one example here. This is a patient of mine who had stage 4 historically incurable lung cancer involving a large tumor in the lung that had also spread to another site in the body, the adrenal gland. We see this on the PET scan of the patient here. And yet, 8 years later, there's no sign of the cancer. This patient has been cured. How? Was it with new immunotherapy or new targeted drugs? No, actually, this was with radiotherapy. And in fact, it was precision targeted radiotherapy. And this shows you what we can do with modern radiotherapy today. What you see here are slices of CT scans showing the tumor in the lung that was the large tumor. That rainbow color is the distribution of the high dose radiotherapy that you can see is nicely sculpted right around the shape of the tumor, and highly targeted. And the lung tumor was treated with chemo and radiation together over a period of a few weeks. Whereas the smaller tumor of the adrenal gland, because it's small, we could focus the dose very sharply, give a very high ablative dose, and treat that in just a single treatment. And that resulted in the cure that we saw. And the same patient, 9 years after that initial treatment, was found to have a new early stage lung cancer. Now, in the past, with that initial presentation, we would never have had the chance to see a new cancer develop in these patients. And yet now I'm frequently treating second or third cancers in patients because we're doing better. This tumor was treated with that highly focused ablative SABR treatment. And now, more than 15 years after the original treatment, is cured again. So the paradigms are shifting. With the improvements in drugs, what we're seeing is not that radiotherapy or surgery is being eliminated, but quite the opposite. The better the drugs that we have, the more opportunity there is to combine with very effective local therapies to convert tumor control to tumor cure. And so the emerging concept is that even in some cases where there's metastatic cancer, if it's limited, these are starting to become curable, as I showed you an example of. Nevertheless, we still have limitations. When there's a very large burden of disease, bulky tumors, many tumors that are metastatic, these today are still incurable by and large. So that brings us to the question, what does it take to cure cancer if it's not purely just a matter of, the stage or where it's located? And really, to boil it down to, simply, what it takes to cure cancer is that you need to be able to eliminate all of the cancer from the body. At the same time, the patient has to be able to survive without unacceptable collateral injury. We can give doses of chemotherapy that will kill every cancer cell in the body, but that's the problem is that's not tolerable. It's not an acceptable treatment. And so cancer really can only be cured if the treatment needed to eliminate all of the cancer can be tolerated by the patient. And that's where we run into limitations. So that's where we get this concept of therapeutic precision. Precision therapy is being able to target the cancer and spare the normal organs. And this is true of any cancer treatment. It doesn't matter whether it's drugs or radiation or surgery. We need to be able to eliminate the cancer safely. Anything that we can do to shift that balance is the win that we want. So with all those advances in radiotherapy that I showed you, what needs to be better? Well, one of the big problems that we still try to solve to get to that ultimate precision is dealing with the fact that every part of the body is moving all the time. Here, for example, if the tumor is moving in the lung as a patient breathes, typically what we need to do is to treat a larger area just to make sure we don't miss the tumor. The larger the area that we treat, the more injury that's caused. Radiation eventually causes scarring and inflammation and loss of organ function. There's also costs, both equipment and space costs of radiotherapy that is part of what limits that access that I mentioned earlier. And so one of the problems that we deal with is that radiotherapy is too slow. And this is something that we've been working on for a long time, implementing new technologies in the clinic. Peter Maxim is an expert in medical physics and also co-founder of TibaRay that I've worked with for many years, bringing technologies into the clinic to do something like this. So for a moving lung tumor, we actually can map out the motion of the tumor during breathing. We can adjust the shape of the target to specifically match that trajectory. We can also synchronize the radiation beam with this motion so that we can turn the beam on only at certain portions of the breathing cycle so we can treat a smaller area. We can even track the tumor, follow it around with the radiation beam. But these are complex treatments that are difficult to do well, easy to do wrong, hard to make general for clinics all around the world. And they all have one fundamental assumption, which is it takes longer to give the radiation than for the body or the tumor to move. And so we thought, what if we could flip that equation around? What if the radiation could be given so fast that there's no time for anything to move, to freeze the motion? And that's the concept that we started developing a little over a decade ago to address this motion problem. But shortly after we started this path, this very surprising discovery was reported out of the Curie Institute in France. They were studying mice with tumors and without tumors. And so here's an example that they published where the lung of the mice were treated with radiation. A high dose of radiation after about 6 months or so causes a lot of scarring in the lung. That dark color that you're seeing there compared to the lacy light color of the normal lung is scarring. And this is not a surprise, that's expected. This is a known effect of high dose radiation to the lung. The surprise was that giving the same dose, but extremely fast in a fraction of a second, which they called flash, showed hardly any of this scarring at all. And it took nearly doubling the dose with flash to achieve a similar level of scarring as the conventional slower radiation. On the other hand, in numerous tumors that they looked at, this flash and conventional radiation were equal in the tumor killing. So it caused less damage to normal tissues, but did not compromise tumor killing, which is really the holy grail of cancer therapy, as we mentioned earlier. So immediately, my lab at Stanford and my collaborators, we started looking at this amazing phenomenon. This was one of our first experiments that we published, where we looked at radiotherapy to the brain of mice. And we could test the memory function of the mice by placing objects and seeing if they could remember the locations of the objects. And what we found was that with conventional radiation to the brain, as expected, this is a classical phenomenon, the memory function goes down. But with flash, the memory was preserved. And when we look at the nerve cells, the neurons in the brain, this very fine structure, the dendrites on those neurons, were diminished with conventional radiation. But with flash, it was closer to the mice that had no radiation. In addition, when we look at inflammation in the brain, which again, that's a classic reaction to a radiation, in the memory center, the hippocampus, there's a lot of inflammation after conventional radiation. That's known for a long time. But with flash, there is still inflammation, but less. And again, that translated to memory function that was about equal to mice who didn't get any radiation at all with flash. But there was a clear loss of memory function in the conventional radiation group. So this is just one example of work in this area. When you see results like that, one of the first questions is it a fluke? Was it something that was technically, strange that we did in one lab that's not reproduced elsewhere? So we did extensive work working with international colleagues, first to calibrate doses in these experimental systems across numerous labs around the world. And then we did a validation experiment. So at Stanford, we did the brain radiation experiment, and the same experiment was done by the pioneering group in Switzerland. And what we found was that the results were exactly the same. The memory function of the mice was lost with conventional radiation. It was preserved with flash. And on the right-hand side, you see the differences in this basically is a measure of electrical function in the brain that, again, was lost with conventional radiation, but preserved with flash. And so, again, this is just the brain is just one example. This is a survey of experiments done around the world. This is already from a few years ago, where there are experiments showing in different organ systems, the brain, the gut, the lungs, the skin, the blood system. In all of those areas, the normal tissues were less damaged by flash compared to the conventional radiation. whereas and in different animal systems, zebrafish to pigs, the same phenomenon was found, whereas in numerous tumor systems, there was no compromise of the tumor killing. And this has been shown with many different types of radiation beams, from electrons to protons to X-rays and so on. So it's a robust phenomenon, but it's primarily a laboratory phenomenon so far that we are excited to try to get into the clinic. So this is the flash effect, less collateral damage without compromising tumor killing. So really what we want to do, bringing this to the clinic, is to cure cancer in a flash. Treatment that is about 500 times faster than what we can do today. And what that would accomplish is highest precision by freezing motion in the body, leveraging the biological advantage of flash, so that even those tissues that receive radiation are less damaged, and also more efficient treatment. Faster treatment means that more patients can be treated on a given machine, and that's an important factor for that access issue that I discussed earlier. So is flash actually possible to do in the clinic with existing technologies? And the answer is to a certain degree. So there are existing machines that are used to deliver radiation therapy in the clinic, electron beam systems and proton beam systems, where it turns out that the existing technologies, it is possible just on the existing machines to basically turn up the dial and to give the treatment faster than we used to. However, these existing technologies have substantial limitations. For the electron beam systems, really, those electrons can only reach superficial targets. So, for example, on the skin. So this is not something that you could use to treat a lung tumor. On the other hand, with the proton beam systems, although they can reach deeper, as you can see, they're very large machines. And to get that very good shaping of dose that we want to treat from multiple different angles. And yet, these machines that move around the patient to bring in different angles, you can't do that on flash speed. So you're limited to pretty small tumors that are only treated from one beam direction. And to get the flash, you're actually giving up that very good sculpting of dose that we have spent decades trying to achieve. And so it's a compromise. Well, what about the beams that we use really for 98% of radiotherapy, which is high energy X-ray beams using medical linear accelerators? So I'm showing here actually the first medical linear accelerator in the Western Hemisphere that was invented here at Stanford, and it's now the 70th anniversary of that. And on the right side, kind of the modern version of that that's used to give that very focused, sculpted radiation that I showed you examples of earlier. But the challenge is that these existing medical linear accelerator X-ray based systems are not flash compatible, because you can't just turn up the dial on them. They're already operating at essentially the maximum of the current technology. And so we need something hundreds of times faster, and that requires totally new technology. And that's where our co-founder, Sami Tantawi, comes into the picture. He's a world expert in accelerator science. And around the time that we started addressing these issues, he had made a fundamental discovery in accelerator science that basically hadn't been found for the previous 70 years. And he discovered the fundamental reasons why the inefficiencies in power conversion in linear accelerators are there. And found ways to overcome that. So by optimizing the exquisite shape of the accelerating cavities within the linear accelerator and distributing the power in a novel way, this new design that was prototyped at Stanford University and SLAC National Accelerator Lab, you can see Sami with a picture there, demonstrated these principles that showed much better power efficiency, which means that we can use the same amount of power to produce much more beam. And that's the technology that is now being realized within TibaRay. This is the first version that is being commercialized now. It's based on that very efficient accelerator design. This is not to produce flash right from the outset, but it is outperforming anything currently in the industry. So what you can see is that this accelerator, if you look at that bottom row, the 3,000 monitor units per minute is kind of the measure to refer to here. That is the rate of radiation that can be produced by this novel accelerator using a very modest amount of input power. And by comparison, the top performing medical linear accelerator in the industry uses more power to produce less beam. And so there's a tremendous advantage of the efficiency of this new design. And the first introduction of this into the clinic is going to be with our clinical partner, Leo Cancer Care. And what you see pictured here is a novel system that Leo Cancer Care developed where the patient is in a position where instead of lying down, they're in a seated or even standing position, the upright position, that has many advantages in terms of patient comfort, better body positioning. They've developed a CT scanner that works in this upright position to provide high quality imaging during the treatment. And one of the big advantages is that it allows much more compact systems, treatment systems to be implemented because you don't have to move this big machine around the patient. The patient in this upright position is very easy to turn to provide beam access. So the first in the world of this type of system using proton therapy has now been installed at Stanford and will be operating soon. But Leo Cancer Care is planning to roll this out into much broader clinical access using X-ray linear accelerator technology. A conventional LINAC using a standard RF power source would produce that 1,200 monitor unit per minute type of dose range, whereas using the Galactica, which we have partnered with Leo Cancer Care to put into their system, would give that 3,000 monitor units per minute using the same very modest amount of input power. So what that translates to clinically is that that very high dose, very focused treatment that I mentioned earlier can be delivered in just about 2 minutes, whereas a more conventional dose that's delivered, smaller doses delivered daily over a few weeks, can now be delivered in under 10 seconds, which anyone can basically hold their breath for that period of time. But when you're moving the machine around the patient, you can't move it that fast. When the patient is upright and turning in a chair, you can. But we're not stopping there. The immediate plan is this roadmap for higher performance reaching the flash range. So this initial 3,000 monitor units per minute will be in the Leo product. But there's a very straightforward upgrade path to the next version that will double that performance. And then a straightforward trajectory to get to the much higher specifications, basically 30 times higher. That will be the basis for our platform that we're calling Phaser, and I'll explain that in a moment. So with this very high power LINAC that is 30 times faster than the current state of the art, that will be introduced with the Leo platform in a product that we're calling Falcon. And that would allow that very high ablative dose of radiation now to be delivered in a single 5-second breath hold. Combining these into the ultimate version for flash, we would have multiple beamlines operating together to reach that 500 times faster treatment, completing treatment in a fraction of a second. And just to illustrate what that would look like, this is the current state of the art. It's the fastest treatment in the world that we can do now. And what you see is that 25 gray ablative dose being delivered to a lung tumor as the machine rotates around the patient, delivering beams from all different angles. This treatment takes a little over 3 minutes, which is, a short time, but it's still a much longer time than it takes for the body to move. Whereas Don't Blink Now, that's the same very high dose treatment, very focused, delivered in a fraction of a second using our phaser concept, which is fast enough to freeze the motion, fast enough to take advantage of the new biology of flash, but also designed from the beginning to be compact and economical and clinically efficient to provide that global access to the most advanced curative radiotherapy. The team at TibaRay, the founding team, are the world experts from many different disciplines that came together out of our original Stanford research program, spanning the disciplines of cancer therapy, radiation treatment, medical physics, in imaging, and therapy, and accelerator science and engineering, combined with a really experienced high power commercial team led by Thinh Tran, who's a serial founder and CEO of companies from the startup to the public stage. And we're excited to be doing this work in the Silicon Valley, just across the bay from Stanford, where we have all the facilities to do manufacturing, prototype manufacturing, and testing of radiation devices in a radiation safe facility. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ting, who will talk about our current crowdfunding campaign on WeFunder and also answer questions.
Yeah, so at this point, we put on here that's how you can get to the WeFunder crowding page. As you can see, we have raised close to 650,000 so far, and hopefully you can participate some more and get us to the number we want. So here's my contact information, so feel free to contact me anytime. But let's open the door now for questioning if you have any questions. Yeah.
Can TibaRay's linear technology be used in applications beyond radiation therapy?
Yes, of course. Why our primary mission is to advance cancer treatment, our linear accelerator can be used for other commercial purpose like non-destructive testing, cargo or border security scanning, industrial imaging, and other scientific research as well. And because of the compactness of the size of accelerator, it can be also been battery powered. And so you can take the accelerator on the field and do things like non-destructive testing and so on in the field. So this is an area that we are soon very focusing as well with some of the grant that we got from the government.
What does TibaRay mean and how did it start?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we thought about the name to that matches the mission of this, and our founder Sami Tantawi actually is a bit of an amateur linguist. It turns out there's an ancient language, the Hamitic language, that gave rise to many of the Middle Eastern and African languages, including Arabic and Hebrew and Coptic Egyptian. And the word Tiba in this language means cure and healing and goodness. Even in modern Swahili, Tiba means cure. And that's the theme that we really wanted to emphasize as part of our mission here. And as I mentioned, TibaRay came out of an academic collaboration where it was a research program to develop a new paradigm in cancer therapy within Stanford University and SLAC National Accelerator Lab. And of course, branched out quite a bit more than that. But we realized fairly early on that ultimately we could demonstrate the proof of principle concepts that the science works in the academic setting, but we need a vehicle to bring this into the real world for clinical reality. And that's why TibaRay was formed.
How does AI fit in TibaRay's future?
Well, in a lot of areas, obviously, artificial intelligence and machine learning has impacted just about every area you can think of, including many areas in medicine. So it's already made its way in to parts of what we do in cancer radiotherapy in terms of automation, image analysis, um, uh, actually doing some of the planning and calculation of the treatments. And so necessarily our technology will be implementing many of these features.
Who are TibaRay's strategic partners?
We have right now one of the most important partner we have is Leo Cancer Care, and we're going to partner with Leo Cancer to deliver the first uh, X-ray system with their vertical chair, and that the first system will be dedicated actually for Mayo Hospital, and so we're very excited about that. But other strategic partners, one of the most important is leading institution, just as Stanford. And also, right now, Bill is leading a group of consortium of five of the best university that has a lot of advance in flash therapy that we working with that now. So those are so far are the key strategic partner that we working with.
What makes TibaRay different from traditional radiotherapy companies? It's a good question.
Yeah, so I can address some of that. As I mentioned, the technology that was the fundamental technology that was invented about 70 years ago to basically start the modern era of radiotherapy was the invention of the linear accelerator. And I showed you an example of like how different that original machine in 1956 looks like compared to today's machines. And there have been a lot of advances. There have been advances in the imaging, the quality of the imaging that's been integrated into the treatment systems, the planning systems, the devices used to shape the beams and all of that. But the core beam producing part of it, the linear accelerator, that's in the state-of-the-art machines today is actually basically pretty much the same as the fundamental technology from the 1950s and 1960s. So that's the key difference, or one key difference, I would say, and one of the most important ones is that we're basing this new treatment paradigm on fundamentally new technology that we have proven the science of in the university setting and now are bringing out into clinical reality.
What is TibaRay's exit strategy for investors?
Okay, I got this question a lot. I think what our primary focus is really execution right now. We would like to be able to bring our technology out, run, make sure we're making profit and take our product to market. And with that, that open a lot of opportunity. For example, the company can do IPO, and I'm sure with the technology we have, TibaRay will also be a very exciting acquisition for a lot of all these large, big imaging company now in the radiation field.
How close is TibaRay to commercialization?
Actually, we are very close. We are actually shipping the first unit to Leo Cancer in a month or so. And we already have initial order from Leo for about 11 of those linear accelerators. And so this is the first time in the company, besides shipping to university or research application before, this is going to be the first commercial application that we're doing. So we expect the rest of the year that TibaRay will be making this product available in for the radiation treatment market that will be used on real patients.
Can you speak on FDA clearance?
Yeah, so I can address that one. So every medical device used on patients needs FDA clearance, and there's different types of FDA clearance. Um, the 510(k) pathway, that's the kind of the technical term, is one that is used for devices that have a predicate. In other words, the same type of technology exists. It's known what it's used for, and if your a device is providing essentially the same type of treatment as that existing one, it can be cleared as long as you demonstrate the technical performance meets the specifications and does not require conducting a clinical trial to generate actual clinical efficacy data, as opposed to the path that is a totally new technology that you're testing for a particular application. You have to show the efficacy and safety in a clinical trial. In radiotherapy, because radiotherapy existed prior to the FDA, and there's always been a predicate. Every medical linear accelerator that's ever come onto the market has gone through the 510(k) pathway that does not require clinical trials, and that's what we expect to enter the clinic with. However, once our technology is in the clinic and treating patients, we would want to do the clinical trials with our, luminary academic partners to actually show the new benefits of treating with flash, and be able to make those as exclusive claims. And that requires a separate FDA pathway that demonstrates the clinical benefit through clinical trials. So that would be the next phase. But we don't need that to enter the market.
Why is now the right time for this technology?
Well, I guess I'll give my take on that.
Thank you.
It's actually not just the right time, it's overdue, to be frank. And as I mentioned, I've worked with colleagues over the years, introducing different technologies into the clinic, so that they could be used to benefit the patients that I treat. I mean, basically, this is a tool that I need in my hands to treat my own patients, and make it available, globally for others to have other patients to enjoy those same benefits. And so the technology is ready, and it's kind of, if anything, past the time when we need to have this. So now is the right time.
What gives you confidence in TibaRay that TibaRay can succeed? So I'll give it to Ting first, and then Bill, if you could answer that.
I think what attracted me to TibaRay too is we have a really world-class scientific team, both on the physics side, on the medical side, has very deep clinical expertise. We have very good strategic partnership now, and all the in-house development capabilities to be able to take our product to market. Bill, you want to maybe add something else?
Yeah, I think I would agree with what you just said, Ting. The the expertise that we were able to bring together originally in our research program and now into TibaRay is really what excites me about being a part of this. Because I see that we're doing something, we're able to do something, and we've actually proven that we can do something that nobody else has been able to do, and see the impact that it can have. So this is what we need, and we have the team to do it. I think that's really what excites me about it.
What does curing cancer in a flash mean?
As I introduced, Flash was really this new scientific discovery that we could tip the scale in that balance between tumor killing and collateral damage to normal organs. And it's kind of it's a new precision from a biological standpoint that dovetails perfectly with the physical precision that comes from very fast treatment that can freeze the uncertainty of motion in the body. So Flash really combines both of those two concepts of physical and biological precision, which is what we need to cure cancer. So that's what curing cancer in a flash is about.
Will this cure all types of cancers?
Well, radiotherapy, even today, is used actually for the large majority of cancer types. And obviously, and many patients are cured. As I mentioned earlier, if we catch and treat cancers in an earlier stage, most patients are cured. And the challenge is to be able to cure all cancer types and patients in all stages of cancer. We really need to be able to shift that balance between tumor killing and collateral damage. That's that therapeutic precision that I was talking about. And as we make that shift, more and more patients with cancer will be curable. It'll kind of shift that balance from the mostly curable to sometimes curable. We'll be shifting the sometimes curable to mostly curable, and we'll be shifting the incurable to sometimes and hopefully eventually mostly curable.
So I think that is it. And thank you so much for joining. Any last words, Bill or Ting, for everyone today?
Well, I think we are at an inflection point that is exciting because we're now launching finally the innovations that we've developed into the clinical space with very strong commercial and clinical partners. And so I think the opportunity now to partner with this community in making it reality is super exciting, and we hope that you will share that excitement and join us.
There's really no technical risk anymore. It's a matter of execution to take our product to market. We've been working on this for the last 12 years, and this is ready to be commercialized. So the only thing we need now is more funding to make this thing happen. So, and thank you for attending.